Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome again. Please join us in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we'll be covering Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, Chapter 14. Lord Krishna explains the yoga system to Śrī Uddhava. Hare Krishna, please join us for Jayarada Madhav prayers. Please join us for Mangalacharana prayers. Together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriet Shratam Swakatha Kṛṣṇa Punya Shamana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Bhadrani Vidunoti Sahasatam Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhakti Naishiki. Hare Krishna, please join us in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we will be covering Srimad Bhagavatam 11th Canto, chapter 14. Lord Krishna explains the yoga system to Śrī Uddhava. Canto 11, chapter 14, verse 1. Śrī Uddhava Uvacha.
Śrī Uddhava Uvacha.
Vadanti Kṛṣṇa Śrēyansi.
Vadanti Kṛṣṇa Śrēyansi.
Bahuni Brahmavadinaha.
Bahuni Brahmavadina.
Tesham Vikalpa Pradhanyam.
Tesham Vikalpa Pradhanyam.
Utaho Eka Mukhyata.
Utaho Eka Mukhyata.
Please.
Śrī Uddhava Uvacha.
Śrī Uddhava Uvacha.
Vadanti Kṛṣṇa Śrēyansi.
Vadanti Kṛṣṇa Śrēyansi.
Bahuni Brahmavadina.
Bahuni Brahmavadinaha.
Tesham Vikalpa Pradhanyam.
Tesham Vikalpa Pradhanyam.
Utaho Eka Mukhyata.
Utaho Eka Mukhyata. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Śrī Uddhava said, My dear Kṛṣṇa, the learned sages who explain Vedic literature recommend various processes for perfecting one's life. Considering these varieties of viewpoint, my Lord, please tell me whether all these processes are equally important or whether one of them is supreme. Purport. In order to clearly establish the exalted position of Bhakti Yoga or pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord, Śrī Uddhava requests Lord Krishna to identify the supreme among all processes of self-realization. Not all Vedic processes lead directly to the ultimate goal, pure love of God. Some only gradually elevate the consciousness of the living entity. For the purpose of giving a general outline of the process of self-realization, sages may discuss the various methods of elevation. But when the time comes to ascertain the most perfect process, the secondary methods must be cleared from the path. Hare Krishna. Please join us in seeking blessing from the Acharyas. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarine Om Jnana Timrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripa tadaham vande Shri Gurum Deenataranam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So in this chapter, Śrī Uddhava is inquiring about the supreme process among the various processes that have been identified by the great sages. And so Lord Kṛṣṇa is going to reveal. And in the second verse actually, Śrī Uddhava already identifies that, my dear Lord Kṛṣṇa, you have already identified the glories of the pure devotional service. And so he is a pure devotee. And why is he asking this question? It is for our benefit that he is inquiring from Lord Shri Krishna. So, the purpose of reading Srimad Bhagavatam, what is the purpose? The purpose is to invoke the love of Godhead, to reawaken our, relationship with Lord Shri Krishna and engage in devotional service for his pleasure. So that is the goal. And of course, the side effects, right? The secondary effect of that is that one goes back home, back to Godhead. After we develop the love of Godhead, it's awakened and we are serving him with humility and gratitude just for his pleasure. Lord is also known as Rishikesha, master of the senses. So all our senses are satisfied, yet at the same time the secondary effect is also that one goes back home, back to Godhead. So just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, one should ignite the blazing fire of loving service to the Lord and burn to ashes the network of material illusion, which is the main purpose of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, of reading Srimad Bhagavatam, of meditating on the this transcendental literature, because Srimad Bhagavatam is non-different from Kṛṣṇa. So this front cover of 11th canto, which has Shirodakshai Vishnu, Paramatma, being depicted. So he has been identified, and Lord Kṛṣṇa in this chapter gives a complete description of this form of his for the meditators. So Uddhava's question is, there are so many philosophies, there are so many processes that have been identified. And which one of them is the supreme process? So that is very important for us to understand. So what is the best process? What leads us to attain supreme perfection in life? What is it that's not flickering? Here today, gone tomorrow. That should not be the characteristics, right? Because there are so many processes being identified by the sages, and it is very confusing at times that which one is the right process. And when we were kids, as we were growing up, what are the initial thoughts of parents? That our kids should be happy. Yet at the same time, sometimes when the parents do not know the right formula, then they tell what is the formula that they have heard. So this is what tradition does, custom does in the society. Whatever is being propagated, that goes on. And this is where Lord Kṛṣṇa reveals that at the time of annihilation, the Vedic literature, that knowledge was lost. So Lord, also we hear so many times, he takes the form like Hayagriva, and he kills the demons and retrieves the Vedas and he gives it to Brahma. And sometimes when Brahma, he is constantly in meditation, yet at the same time not able to recall, Lord imparts that Vedic knowledge, as we hear in Brahma Samhita. As Lord Brahma was initiated by Lord Shri Krishna by playing his flute. So from the flute came out the Vedas, which entered the ears of Lord Brahma. And he was reawakened in his spiritual consciousness. So, as Janmashtami is approaching, right, we want to make the best use of this time, because Lord Kṛṣṇa is coming, right? It's his birthday, and we want to churn our heart with the chanting of the holy name, so that he can steal, this heart becomes soft like butter, the sweet butter, and he steals them away. And which is simply with the process of chanting. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. He is Makhanchor, and we want our hearts to be soft by constant meditation on Leela Smaran, thinking about his name form activities, pastimes, his associates and his devotees. So by engaging in devotional service is also successful when we do it in the association of devotees. And again, this topic has been identified as a central topic. That yes, to be able to attain perfection in life, we should read, scriptures, bona fide scriptures like Srimad, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and so many wonderful books by Srila Prabhupada. At the same time, when we do it in the association of devotees, when we sing Kirtan in the association of devotees, then it has amazing effects. We were looking at the meditation, like chanting of the holy name, and reading some of the glories. And some amazing truths were revealed in the scriptures, as well as by Srila Sanatana Goswami. Srila Sanatana Goswami reveals that chanting of the holy name, when done loudly, has hundreds of times of more potent effect, right? It's more potent than doing it, quietly, by murmuring or by manasa. While in the scriptures, this is an exception, right? This is transcendental sound vibration coming from the spiritual world. And Srila Prabhupada reveals that this is just like a cry of a child. We are calling out, just like a child cries out for its mother. We are calling out to our supreme eternal parents, right? Srimati Radharani, our mother, and Lord Shri Krishna, our supreme father, to please engage us in their service. We want to lovingly serve them, lovingly engage in meditating on them. And that was the message in the previous chapter. When Lord appeared as Hamsa Avatar, he said that one should meditate his mind, make me the supreme goal of focus of his mind. So, has his mind, make me enter his mind. So that's like meditating on me, his name, form, activities, pastimes. So in our mind, we should constantly be thinking of name, form, activities, pastimes of the Supreme Lord and his associates and devotees, so that we get purified. And that's also austerity of mind. We also covered that, the austerity of mind, body and speech, because we can perform actions three ways. By our mind, because mind has this behavior of accepting and rejecting, but to be able to accept or reject anything, this nature of mind, it is, should be purified. So purification of mind, making sure it is satisfied in its current state, it is having wonderful thoughts, even transcend the three modes. Even the mode of goodness can be transcended when we are meditating on Lord Shri Krishna, constantly thinking of his name, form, activities, pastimes. Leela Smaran also, we said, just like gopis were experiencing, constantly meditating on the various pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna. If we engage our mind in constantly meditating on the wonderful pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna, as how he steals butter, as how he plays with the cowherd boys and even accepts defeat. And sometimes he is even, playing with Nand Baba and Yashoda Mai. When they are asking, can you bring Nand Baba's, slippers, padukai? He picks up those padukai and places them on his head. And he brings them. And sometimes when they are asking him to bring different things, and he was just a lallai, just a young boy, 3-4 years old, and he's showing that he is not able to pick. And then he pats on his arms to say, okay, I will do it again. And then he's showing as if he's not able to do. It is so amazing that he's playing out such wonderful pastimes and making Mother Yashoda and Nand Baba constantly bathe in this ocean of bliss, and all the residents of Vrindavan are experiencing this ecstasy. So here Lord Krishna reveals to Uddhava that at the time of annihilation the Vedic knowledge was lost, and so Lord imparted that Vedic knowledge to Lord Brahma, and he himself is the injunctions, the religious principles in the Vedas. And this is revealed in Bhagavad Gita. This is the most common verse that Srila Prabhupada used to, recite. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto mattah smriti jnanam apohanam cha vedescha sarveraham eva vedyo vedanta kridved vid eva chaham sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto. So, Lord is revealing to Arjuna that I am in the heart of all living entities. Hridaya sannivishto. Mattaha smritir jnanam apohanam cha. From me comes smriti, remembrance, jnanam, knowledge, and apohanam, forgetfulness. Because if one wants to forget Krishna, Krishna allows it. He doesn't interfere with our free will. We have little free will. He is unlimited. And He wants our love. Because if there is no question of free will, if He forces us, then we are like robots. And how can there be love between a robot and a master of robots? So He wants us to have this loving exchange with Him by our own will. He wants to have this original expression of love. And that's why He does not interfere with our free will. If we want to remember Him, He allows us to remember Him. If we want to forget Him, He allows us to forget Him. If we want to be in knowledge, just by loving Him, He even provides that knowledge. Tesham evanu kampartham aham ajnana jamtamaha nashami atma bhavasto jnana deepena bhasvata. Tesham evanu kampartham aham ajnana jamtamaha. So Lord Krishna says, because of His anukampa, His causeless mercy, in the darkness of the heart, Lord, He Himself lights the lamp of knowledge and He drives away all that darkness. Nashami atma bhavastu jnana deepena bhasvata. And He expressed this light. So when we want to be in knowledge, Lord provides us. Lord Brahma is the first living entity in this material universe. In our material universe, we have discussed a very small universe. There are many big material universes where the Brahmas of those universes, they have, hundreds of heads, thousands of heads, 10,000s of heads, because it requires so much mental power, so much brain to run such creation and other activities of those material universes. So Lord Krishna is revealing that He imparted the Vedic knowledge to Lord Brahma when it was lost. And when He provided this Vedic knowledge to Lord Brahma passed it on to his eldest son Manu. And Manu passed it to the 7 great sages, Saptarishis, headed by Bhrigu Muni. And so they accepted that knowledge as is, right? And now the forefathers, now the discussion comes of Prajapatis, which is, the activity of Lord Brahma is to further encourage his sons and grandsons to increase the progeny. So various kind of Prajapati like Daksha, Kashyapa Muni and so many others, Atri, Anasuya and so many others, they came into existence. And then they further increased the various kind of living entities they came into being. And as this knowledge was passed on, based on the different effects of the 3 modes of material nature, they accepted different part of that Vedic knowledge. And so various traditions, customs and disciplic successions, the rituals in disciplic succession, they came into being. And that's why when Arjuna is giving reference in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he is saying, I have heard this in disciplic succession. So one of those disciplic successions, one of those sampradayas. So there are various kinds of sampradayas that they come in. And they are passing on what is sampradaya. But again, the bona fide sampradayas are only 4. And what are these 4 bona fide sampradayas? Brahma sampradaya coming from Lord Brahma. Rudra sampradaya coming from Lord Shiva, Rudra. Kumar sampradaya coming from Chatur Kumars, Sanak, Sanatana, Sanandana and Sanat Kumar. And then Śrī sampradaya coming from Goddess Lakshmi. So these 4 sampradayas are the bona fide sampradayas, right? Bona fide disciplic successions. And there are various kind of sampradayas, they also came into being because of the effects of the 3 modes of material nature. So when the living entities were in the 3 modes of material nature, they were influenced accordingly. So faith has been described in Bhagavad Gita to be of 3 kinds, and people worship based on their faith. So people who worship without expecting any fruitive results, and just for advancement, to keep a simple life and further seek advancement in life, to be satisfied. Shamudamash tapah shaucham shanti rajo amevacha jnanam vijnanam astikam Brahma karma svabhavajam. So there are 8 kind of activities that Brahmanas, in the mode of goodness, people in the mode of goodness, they engage in. And these activities are, tolerance, humility, simplicity, simple living, higher thinking, reciting Vedic literatures, constantly seeking to purify one's existence, being very merciful and considerate of others, and not expecting any return for themselves. So that is the nature in the mode of goodness. So people in this mode of goodness worship with not expecting any return. But in the mode of passion, it changes. Because mode of passion is like the administrators, so Kshatriya form. And Lord Brahma, when he's engaged in creation, so he's doing it, and thus he gets influenced by mode of passion, just like we heard in the last chapter. Why was he not able to respond to the question of the sages that when one's mind is attracted towards the sense objects and they are constantly meditating on sense objects, how can they get free from this attachment to the sense objects? And Lord Brahma, he could not, because of his activities, the various kind of activities in creation of this material universe, stopped him from being able to respond. So he immediately took shelter of higher power, right? Lord Shri Krishna. And he meditated on Lord Shri Krishna's form and in his heart. So that's the process for him. And Lord appeared in Hamsa avatar form, and he revealed the truth, the transcendental truth. And why did he appear in the Hamsa avatar form? Because Hamsa have this characteristic that if there is a mixture of water and milk, the swan, Hamsa, can separate, just take away the milk, right, and leave the water behind. So he is going to take away, he is going to separate the pure consciousness, the spiritual consciousness of Lord Brahma and the 4 Kumaras and leave behind the influence of the material mode. So all the philosophies are left behind. Yet at the same time, Uddhava, he is curious for our benefit. He is asking this question, this chapter, and Lord Shri Krishna is responding to this question regarding the various philosophies, the various traditions and customs that are there. And there are various kind of non-bona fide sampradayas that have originated. And many of them have been discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. And of course, if you read Padma Puran and Vishnu Puran, you come to know of many more than these. So here, in this chapter, Lord Krishna is revealing that after he imparted, and then the forefathers, the Prajapatis, they further engage in increasing the progeny, various kind of living entities came into being. There were demigods. Demigods are people who are devotees of Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. And they are continuing to do activities for his pleasure. So they are at various, planets, and they are carrying out those activities. Then there are demons. Demons are ones who always think that they can do it by their own strength, right? And they have this attitude of jiski lati uski bhais, right? If I have the power, I take the position. And that is a misuse of power, because as we hear, the only supreme power is Lord Shri Krishna, and that should be properly respected. And that mood of humility and tolerance is required to be able to come from that perspective. So again, different kind of traditions came into being. Shukracharya, he is son of Bhrigu, and he is an expert performer of fire sacrifices. And when, the Daityas, sons of Diti, the descendants of Diti actually, when they approach him and they please him by their service, just like Bali Maharaj, he pleased Shukracharya so much that Shukracharya, gave him, performed great yajnas and made him invincible. And so he was able to defeat Indra. Actually, Indra ran away. He didn't even fight along with the other demigods. They just vacated, Amrapali and all the heavenly kingdom, and they just incognito were wandering on various earthly planets based on the instruction they received from their spiritual master Brihaspati, because Brihaspati, spiritual master of demigods, told them that right now Bali Maharaj is very powerful, you will not be able to win. And then he had to take shelter of, because Aditi, knowing that her son is wandering, she worshipped and pleased Lord Shri Krishna, and so Lord appeared as Vaman Dev, Upendra, through her womb, and he was able to get all the heavenly kingdom and give it to Indra as part of the begging. So that was a charity that Bali Maharaj performed, and that purified him immensely and glorified him immensely. So that we say that Atma Nivedanam, the topmost process of devotional service, who's the example? Daityaraj Bali Maharaj, a descendant of Diti and Kashyapa Muni. So here Lord Krishna is saying that various kind of ritualistic processes they start because of the influence of the three modes of material nature. And various races, you can say, like the demigods are there, the demons are there, the Daityas are there. There are Kim Devas, there are Kim Purushas and Kim Naras, and all these different human beings are there and so forth. So it is very interesting that when you hear Kim Devas, who are these? Who are Kinnaras? Who are Kim Purushas? So this has also been identified in the Shastras by the Acharyas. Kim Devas are like, what does it mean? Are they like Devas? Kim means are they? And Devas. Are they Devas? Are they the demigods? That's actually a question. When you look at them, they look so heavenly, having this celestial opulence and bodies that they look magnanimous. And people would ask, looking at them, are they demigods? That's why they are called Kim Devas. Actually, they are human beings. But because of their, high potencies that they have received and, the prowess that they have, they appear like demigods. Kim Purushas are people, that means again they are living entities who have either the head of a human being or the body of a human being, but not both. They have the other part from another, type of living condition, living entity. So again, the material bodies. So that's why they are called Kim Purushas. And many times in various kind of literatures, all around the world, we see various kind of living entities who have different other bodies, but then the head of a human being, or who have head of a human being, but have different, or body of a human being, but different heads of different animals and so forth. So they are Kim Purushas. Kinnaras. Kinnaras is, again, you can just modify it, as I just explained, that Kinnaras, are they, like human beings? And so they are, again, they look like human beings, but they are other living entities. So similarly, various kind of living entities came in various modes of material nature. And Lord explains that because of the influence of the mode of nature, their faith were different. And we talked about in Bhagavad Gita that in the mode of goodness, one is engaged in, further advancement, because spiritual, religious principles, they manifest to one. And what are the religious principles? Austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. So these are the four religious principles. I know Grihasthas normally think that dharma, artha, kam, moksha, right? Those are the four essentials of this material life. Yet at the same time, that is still in the mode of goodness, but there is a higher purpose of dharma, earth. Dharma is the first one, and of this dharma there are four limbs. So again, in the first canto, as we heard, the four legs of the bull, dharma, were austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. So these four religious principles are very important for us to understand. And Lord says that He is the one who is enunciated as the religious principles. So in the mode of goodness, one understands that these are the religious principles, so they purify their life. And that's why when we go through this initiation process, many times people ask, now why do we follow these four regulative principles? And then of course the chanting of the holy name, the fifth one. So there are prohibitions, and there is yam and niyam. Yam is things you don't do, and niyam is things that you do. So of yam is you don't engage in austerity, is destroyed by intoxication. So you don't engage in taking any kind of intoxication, including tea, coffee, and other caffeine liquids. Second is cleanliness. Cleanliness is destroyed by meat eating, right? Because internally it destroys us. So you don't take to meat eating. No meat eating, including no onion, no garlic. Why? Because onion, garlic are in the mode of passion and ignorance. More in the passion of ignorance than mode of passion. So, and no meat eating destroys that cleanliness, internal as well as external. And then mercy. Oh, actually, this one is sex. Illicit sex destroys cleanliness. So no illicit sex. It's only allowed in regulated marriage. And mercy is where no meat eating, because that is, not being merciful, not respecting the other living entity. And every living entity is an eternal servant of Lord, and He is the Supreme Father. Aham Bij Pradha Pita, Lord Krishna says. And then the last one is truthfulness, which is no gambling. By not gambling, and it's still, if one has this wonderful literature and decides not to read the literature, is also a gamble, that they are trying to overcome the various hurdles of this life by their own strength and being bewildered by the modes of material nature, the illusion. So one can, with the fire of devotion, can burn away this network of illusion just by taking to devotional service, which simply starts with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Then Lord Krishna is also describing that in the mode of passion, one is looking for name, fame and glories. One wants respect. He wants everyone to recognize them as great person, as a highly prestigious personality, and they're looking for honor. They want to be honored, the name, fame and glory should be sung everywhere. And the third aspect is that they are always seeking worship. They not just that, they be honored, but they should be considered worshipable by everyone. So this is in a mode of passion, and administrators are in this mode, right? So administrators like mode of passion, but these three modes are constantly in, they're challenging each other, and whichever mode is more prominent, that's how we are influenced. So they are constantly in competition with each other. We have talked about even during the day, right? Mode of goodness is from Brahmahurta about 4 hours. Then mode of passion is 8 hours duration. It is more prominent. And then the remaining 12 hours of a day, mode of ignorance is more prominent. Yet at the same time, we can decide, further because of our nature and activities, which mode is furthermore influencing us. However, we can transcend them just by taking to devotional service, just by engaging in Leela Smaran, constantly thinking of name, form, activities and pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna. So in the mode of passion, one is worshipping the demons and other kind of powerful people. There was a man in Calcutta, Srila Prabhupada explains in one of the purport, that he was worshipping Hitler. Because of the Second World War which Hitler started, this man became very rich. Right? He was a merchant and he gained immense wealth. So he considered Hitler to be worshipable. And Hitler was carrying out this war. Why? Because he was saying that the Aryan race should be the race. But he was behaving very non-Aryan. And that is not an Aryan behavior. Aryan behavior is to seek benefit of all, to seek benefit of humanity, and help everyone progress spiritually. Mode of ignorance, one who rejects the Shastras and acts whimsically, speculative, their own manner. This is what I think, so it is. That is their mindset. I don't have to listen to authorities because I have my own mind. And my mind is, I understand everything. I have been given this intelligence. That is their mindset. And so they spend their time in frivolous things, in laziness. So again, necessity is the mother of invention. Sometimes when this phrase is being said, people say, okay, this necessity is not the mother of invention. Even Agatha Christie, she had this statement that it's actually laziness that is the mother of invention. And we see many examples in the scriptures, and not just in scriptures, in history of mankind, where just because we are lazy, we want machines to make our task easy. There are some machines that enable us to do amazing things, but some machines just enable us to be lazy. And that's in the mode of ignorance, that people are, in mode of passion, they are saying, oh, people want to be lazy, so let's give them ways to be lazy, so that they can just be engaged in eat, sleep and be merry. So they eat, they sleep, and they think that that is the best thing to do in this life. They don't have to do anything else. So Lord Krishna, when he's revealing that different kind of customs came, different kind of traditions came because of the influence. So this is how they are there. And then Lord Krishna further, continues to describe that how people are getting influenced by various factors. So he gives like people who are seeking sense gratification. They are coming up with their own, Vedic rituals, mantras and rewards, as they are influenced. When they are looking for truthfulness, that's in the mode of goodness. They are coming up with their own rituals and so forth. And even the mode of goodness is one of the material modes, right? So it is very important for us to understand that we can even transcend that mode of goodness and, all the three modes. And it is not important that one who's in mode of ignorance has to come to mode of passion to be able to come to mode of goodness only, then transcend. That is not the case. Rather, in the scriptures, we hear so many examples that one, just by engaging in devotional service, even unknowingly, can quickly overcome the three modes of material nature. And there are many beautiful examples in Bhagavatam. Like Devashi Narada, in his previous birth, he was son of a maidservant. And just by the association with the Vedantists who were there, in the ashram for 4 months during the Chaturmasya period, he was able to purify himself. So even born as a Shudra, he was able to transcend the three modes of material nature. Just by eating the remnants of the sages who had taken the Mahaprasad, his consciousness was purified. And so he was listening to their discourses. And his consciousness, his body, mind, body and speech, all were purified. And so Lord, being very merciful, enabled him to transcend the three modes of material nature, and he got his spiritual body as Devashi Narad. So Devashi Narad has a spiritual body. Yet sometimes people say, if he has a spiritual body, how is he bewildered? Well, Lord uses his Yog Maya, the internal potency, to bewilder Devashi Narad. So that's another wonderful mystery of Lord Shri Krishna, because he is the supreme controller. And one has to understand this and take shelter of at his lotus feet. And this is where Uddhava is inquiring, to understand for our benefit that which process is the best. Another example was Devashi Narad. He was traveling and he came to a temple and he saw this Brahmana very opulently, very in a proper discipline as per Panchratra and so forth. He was performing beautiful worship of the deities of Lord Shri Krishna. So when he was worshipping and he saw Devashi Narad, he immediately greeted Devashi Narad and he said, "It is so wonderful. Will you be seeing Narayan sometime soon?" Devashi Narad said, "Yes, actually I am on my way to Vaikuntha." He says, "Could you please ask from Lord Narayan, when will I be returning home?" He said, "Sure, I'll ask." And then Devashi Narad, as he was, he left the temple, as he was walking, he saw a cobbler sitting under a banyan tree. So under the banyan tree, this cobbler was working and he saw Devashi Narad. He immediately paid obeisances. And he said, "Oh, dear Devashi Narad, are you going to see Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntha?" Devashi Narad said, "Actually, I am on my way there." So he said, "Could you please ask him one thing?" He said, "Sure." So he asked the same question that the Brahman had asked. "Could you please ask the Lordship, when will I be able to return home back to Godhead?" Devashi Narad said, "Sure, I will be able to," because he's coming, anyway to meet the Brahman, so he can take care of this as well. When he went to Vaikuntha and he saw Lord Vishnu, he sang prayers to Lord Vishnu, he glorified the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then Lord Vishnu, when he asked him, purpose, then Devashi Narad, revealed his purpose and also asked these two questions. That there is this Brahman, he wants to know when will he able to return back home, back to Godhead. And also the cobbler, I met. When will he be able to come back home? Lord said, "My dear Devashi Narad, it will take many more births for this Brahman to come back home. Yet the cobbler is coming right after this birth. This is his last birth and he's coming back home." So Devashi Narad was surprised because he didn't expect that as a response. And so he asked, "How is it that this is the case?" So Lord Vishnu reveals that just tell them what I'm doing and you will know. So Devashi Narad, understanding the purport, like Lord wants me to know by asking them, by inquiring from them, like what do they understand about what Lord is doing. So when he went to the temple and met the Brahman, Brahman asked him, did you see Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntha? He said, yes, I'm just coming from there. And so the Brahman said, so what was the response? Did you ask my question? He said, yes, I did. And he's curious, what was the response? Devashinara said, he said that you have to take many, many births before you return back home, back to Godhead. And the Brahman said, how is that possible? I'm daily engaged in serving Lord Shri Krishna. Means again, I'm serving him day and night. You didn't really meet the Supreme Lord, did you? What was he doing? So, first of all, Devashinara was surprised to see that his Brahman didn't accept his words that he had seen. And then the second is, he's asking, what did Lord Vishnu do? So Devashinara explained what he saw. He said, Lord was passing an elephant through the eye of a needle. And Brahman said, how is that possible? That is not possible. You are just joking around. You are not really, you didn't really go and see the Lord. And Devashinara is surprised to see, and as he's returning back, he's still meditating and surprised at the behavior, at the reaction of this Brahman. He sees the cobbler, and the cobbler greets him and says, my dear Devashinara, did you see the Lord? He said, yes. And did you ask my question? He said, yes, I did. So what was his response? Devashinara says his response was like, this is your last birth. After this birth, you will go back home, back to Godhead. Oh, that the cobbler is in ecstasy. And he's like saying, Lord is just so merciful. He's just so amazing. He's, such a great father and so forth. He's glorifying the Lord immediately. And then he says, when you saw him, what was he doing? Devashinara said he was passing an elephant through the eye of a needle. And then the cobbler, he's in ecstasy, he starts glorifying and he's like, my Lord is so amazing. Yes, he can do whatever he feels like. So now Devashinara wanted to know, is this cobbler just, really glorifying? As for glorifying, really understands? Or is he just, saying something to make me happy? And when he asks, how is it that you believe? He's like, Lord can do anything he feels like. He is unlimited. So just like I'm sitting under this banyan tree, and this tree actually came from a seed which was so small, and now this is just such a gigantic banyan tree. He can put such a gigantic banyan tree in a small seed, and that seed actually came from another banyan tree. So that banyan tree gave millions of such seeds. And that banyan tree with millions of such seeds containing in each seed a big banyan tree also came from a seed. So you can imagine that Lord, he can do whatever he feels like. And seeing this faith of the cobbler, Devashinara understood why the cobbler would be able to return right after this birth, while the Brahman would have to take many, many births. So Lord, he is bhavgari janadana. He is in our heart and he knows what we are thinking. There's another beautiful story that comes in the Shastras of a Brahman who was daily performing Vedic rituals, reciting Vedas, engaging in worship and other devotional services. And right across his house, across the street, lived a prostitute. And he would look at the house of the prostitute and see men entering and leaving and so forth, and he would be disgusted thinking about what she is doing. While this prostitute, she did not have any skill like the Brahman. She was not well educated, but she would look at Brahman performing such nice devotional service, and she would be always appreciative that this Brahman is so amazing. I cannot perform, but he is so fortunate. It just so happened that both of them died on the same day. And the Vishnu Dutas came to take the prostitute, and the Yam Dutas came to take the Brahman. Right? And now, how is that possible? Brahman said, there must be a mistake. You must have come to take the prostitute to the Yamdutas, he is telling. And the Vishnu Dutas should be coming here. So at that time, the Vishnu Dutas revealed that actually she was constantly appreciating you, wanting to do the devotional service like you are doing. So that's why she is going to be able to get that opportunity. While you were disgusted and you were thinking bad thoughts, that polluted your mind, right? And so you would have to go through the sinful reaction of those offensive thoughts. So even janaprad is a very bad thing, and we should not commit those. That is austerity of mind. That austerity of mind is to be satisfied, to have purification of mind, to constantly meditating in a clean state, constantly having clean thoughts. And even better than, that's in the mode of goodness, but even better than is to constantly meditate on the Leelas, the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, name, form, activities, pastimes, and to be constantly meditating on His name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Yes, the austerity of body is important, the austerity of speech is important, but austerity of mind is also magnanimous because, and it is more important, because that is the focus in this particular chapter. Lord reveals that secret, as we'll come to that point. So here from these stories, what are we learning? That one has to purify, perform the austerity of mind, like carry out the austerities of mind, keep the mind clean, keep the mind merciful, keep the mind truthful, and focus on the Supreme Personality of Godhead to transcend the three modes of material nature. And in such state, one can easily attain perfection in this very life by constantly meditating on name, form, activities, pastimes of the Supreme Lord. And another aspect is gravity. Austerity of mind also includes gravity. And when Srila Prabhupada, once he was walking on the west coast near the on the beach, and he pointed to Pacific Ocean, also known as Prashant Mahasagar. Prashant means who's very, very shant, very calm, very grave. So he said, why does the Pacific Ocean appear so calm on the surface? And then he revealed the answer, because it is deep. So we have to dig deeper within ourselves and understand, what is the purpose of this life? Why are we here? Why is there miseries in this material world? Why are people suffering? Why are people unhappy? Why are people endeavoring to be happy, yet at the same time the result they get is just the opposite? All these factors are important. And what is the supreme goal of life? How do I attain that supreme goal of life? How can I be happy? Aham Brahmasmi. So, I am a spirit soul. Everybody understands that. Having a material experience, everybody understands that. But they fail to understand that being a spiritual being, I can actually have a spiritual experience, which starts with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So it is very important for us to be grave, just like the Pacific Ocean. Be deep, go deeper. And you go deeper by self-control, by various, by having that satisfaction as everything that's happening is happening by the providence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by providence. And being simple living, again, simple living, higher thinking. So that should be the way one should be living. And purification of our own existence by engaging in the association of devotees in the 9 process of devotional service. So that is austerity of mind. And austerity of speech, of course, what is in our mind, we normally speak that. Yet we should speak the words that are truthful. So again, that religious principle, that limb is still visible, that in the case of body also, in the case of speech also, that one should be truthful, one should be very pleasing to others, one should speak thoughts which are beneficial for others and humanity, and should not be agitating to others. Sometimes, and this is Lord Krishna also reveals to Uddhava, is that one person thinks that this is of benefit for me, this is for my benefit, so it must be for benefit of everyone else. And that is the wrong mindset. Again, we have to understand that apart from Krishna consciousness, every other philosophy that comes in may be benefit for that particular person in that particular mode, in that state, to be able to elevate further, but does not apply for everyone. Just like when we go among devotees itself, there are so many ways one can engage in devotional service. Someone can take to book distribution, some can take to study of the Shastras, some can take to the teaching of the Shastras, some take to deity worship, some take to Sankirtan, right? Nagar Sankirtan, they go out. Yet at the same time, as one advances, the horizon expands as well. As one continues to engage in devotional service, the horizon expands for them, so they start engaging in multiple activities, just like Srila Prabhupada. Once I was doing deity worship at the temple, and a gentleman who was listening to Srila Prabhupada, because we did not have kirtanias at the time, it was late evening. And Srila Prabhupada, his bhajans were being played on the speakers. So this person came and said, "Oh, whoever is singing with so much devotion. Where can I meet him?" So I said that this is Srila Prabhupada's singing, right? And he's like, "Oh wow, this is so amazing." He's singing with so much emotion that I can feel the hair standing on my body, the shivering in my limbs. He was expressing as like how he is even feeling like crying, means because of that mood in which Srila Prabhupada was singing the bhajans. He was singing, and he was actually, the Sadhacharyas, that song he was singing for the 6 Goswamis, and that song he was singing with such a beautiful mood. And so this man, he was expressing, and we talked about the 5 most potent forms of devotional services, and one of them is, in the association of devotee, and also when one is chanting, and one is at dham. So he had all those factors. And so, even as a neophyte, one can experience love of Godhead, the supreme wealth, the supreme perfection in this very life, even at the level of neophyte, newcomer. So, wherever we are, we have great hope in the association of devotees, in the association, listening to Srila Prabhupada's lectures, listening to his kirtans, and listening to his instructions, reading to his instructions, taking to his instructions as he desires, not as we desire, but as he desires. And taking to Lord Krishna's instructions through the teachings of the Acharyas, because they provide this lens through their purports, the transcendental ecstasies, that we can understand, dive deeper into the instructions given to us by Lord Shri Krishna. So here Lord Shri Krishna is identifying that various kind of people under the various kind of living entities. When he's saying living entities, he's referring to the material bodies under the influence of the various modes of material nature that the living entities have acquired in this material universe. One takes to various kind of ritualistic activities, various kind of practices, and starts various kind of sampradayas, successions, disciplic successions. And now, as Lord is revealing, again, the last one is austerity of body. What is the austerity of body? Is to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, to worship the Brahmanas, to honor the Vaishnavas, and to worship elders like father and mother. So this is austerity of body. We should carry out that as well. And also in cleanliness, we should make sure that our body is clean. We are living simple life. We are living a celibate life. And Srila Prabhupada, he expressed one of the purports that even a grahastha who is living a regulated life, following the regulated principles, and only engage in intimacy with his spouse or her spouse, with the spouse for the progeny, right, to beget children, Krishna conscious children, also following Garbhadhan Samskar, and also non-violence, because meat eating pollutes the body as well as it destroys mercy in one's heart, makes the heart hard, and there cannot be Krishna in such a hard-hearted hard heart. So it's again, we have to carry out, make sure that we are churning our heart with the chanting of the holy name. We need this rain of the holy name in our life to quench the thirst of the soul, to quench our thirst of the living entity that we are, and also to be able to attain perfection. So just like when we are thirsty, we drink water. It quenches the thirst of this body, thirst that the tongue is feeling. Similarly, the chanting of the holy name quenches the thirst of the soul. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Lord Krishna also reveals that one should never give up sacrifice, austerity and charity in one's life. And it purifies even the pure souls. And so, in the 3 modes of material nature, these 3 are of different types. the one who is in a mode of goodness engages in sacrifices without expecting return, engages in austerity without torturing the body but following the injunctions of the Shastras, carry out charity at the right place at the right time and giving it to the right person in the right circumstances, time, place and circumstances, samay kal patra, for the benefit of humanity. And the best charity is to give it to a Vaishnava. So Srila Prabhupada gave this example that once there was a platter of wealth was presented to a yogi and he had his hand on the back. Srila Prabhupada said, bring that wealth in front of me and I'll go like this. Why? Because he will engage every single bit of it, every penny in serving Lord Shri Krishna. Because Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the Supreme Proprietor of all material and spiritual universes. Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram surhidam sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. Bhoktaram yagatapasam. He is the beneficiary. Lord Krishna is revealing that Lord Krishna is the beneficiary of all kind of sacrifices. Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, and is the Supreme Proprietor of all material and spiritual universes. Surhidam Sarva Bhutanam, and he is the best friend, the well-wisher and benefactor of every living entity, not just humans but also birds, beasts, aquatics and so forth. Gyatva mam shantim richati, and one who knows this is peaceful. So again, in the mode of goodness one becomes peaceful but transcends the three modes of material nature by understanding these three aspects. Now Lord Krishna is revealing that, again, austerity we talked about, charity we talked about, the charity has to be done, and the best charity is to be able to increase and expand this message of Krishna consciousness. That is true charity, and also true non-violence. Just not eating, not doing meat eating, not engaging in meat eating is not true non-violence. Srila Prabhupada said that even person who knows about Krishna consciousness and does not propagate this knowledge is being violent. So we should share this wonderful spiritual wealth with others, because this wealth increases the more we share. Unlike the material things which decrease in quantity as they are split, spiritual wealth expands as it is shared more and more. Now, somebody could say that Lord Krishna is revealing that from Vedas and under the three modes of material nature, different kind of living entities only took some specific part of the Vedas that was suitable for their understanding. And being bewildered under the illusion of the three modes of material nature, they propagated in this manner. How is that possible? So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a very nice explanation on this particular topic. That just like Ganges, the water of the Ganges is purifying. Just by taking bath in the Ganges, one sinful reactions are washed away. And her water is very sweet, very nourishing, very purifying for the body and enriching for the health and so forth. Yet there are various poisonous trees. They grow at the bank of the Ganges. So as Ganges river is moving through, doing the different tracts of land, in some places there are poisonous trees. So this, from the soil, they absorb this sweet water, this nourishing water, this purifying water, this, and why is water of Ganges so glorified? Because it washed off the feet of Lord Shri Krishna when he appeared in the Trivikrama form. The second step when he took and penetrated the, the boundary of this material universe, the Vraj river. So again, that came through. So again, not Vraj river, but again, the causal ocean. So again, that came through and washed Lord's feet, and Lord Brahma immediately collected it, and that's Ganges. So it's glorified. And where does Lord Shiva keep this Ganges? On his head. So because again, he is accepting this as a great mercy of Lord on the request of Bhagirath. Where would he take? He takes it on his head. Because Vaishnava Nam Yatha Shambhu, he is the topmost Vaishnava, glorified. So he is showing us by his example how we should be serving. And so such wonderful qualities of Ganges water, when being sucked by these poisonous trees, is being used by these poisonous trees to grow poisonous fruits. So if a living entity eats that fruit, even though the cause of that fruit, the nourishment it's getting is because of this water and the various nutrients at the bank of Ganges, but the fruit is poisonous, one would die. So similarly, there are various kind of philosophies which have been split away, where people who are taking to this under the three modes of material nature are using them for their benefit. They are thinking that this is different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is material consciousness. Yesterday we talked about this. That when we think that this material world is for my enjoyment, and it is different creation than Lord Shri Krishna. And some philosophies, they even say that, God created this material world and He left and He took rest. That is thinking that Lord is different, this material universe is different. While the reality is that the Lord has unlimited potencies and His energies are constantly expanding. And this material energy is an external energy of Lord Shri Krishna. And He reveals that aham sarvasya prabhavo mattah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam UDDHAVA samanvitah aham sarvasya prabhavo mattah sarvam pravartate. So everything emanates from Lord Shri Krishna. So we are all within Lord Shri Krishna, yet at the same time He is expanding as super soul. Sometimes people even misunderstand the concept of super soul. They think that, hey, every material body, in the heart there is the Lord appearing as super soul, and also the Jiva soul is there. So my super soul is different than the other living entity's super soul. Well, no, that is not true, because He expands. Just like fish is swimming in water, doesn't mean its water is different from another fish, because they're all existing in water. We are breathing this air, and even though the air is going in our body and the various 5 kind of airs, they're containing, so the prana is being maintained, right? And the various kind of airs are traveling. It doesn't mean that my air, the air I live in and air you live in is different. We are all in the same atmosphere, same air, yet at the same time we are interacting differently. So the air is nourishing us, or engaging, our engagement with the air is different. So similarly, every living entity's engagement with Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, is different based on their consciousness. And that is very important. Some people, breathing air, they smoke, right? And they understand that smoke is injurious to health, it causes cancer and so many other diseases, yet they do that. And that's also another kind of air. That doesn't make the air bad, it is their perception. So Lord Krishna, again, when we talk about conflict resolution, that's another place where people talk about that the conflict between two people, so both the persons have, both the parties have to be at fault. Yet at the same time, in this case, the conflict is we are having with ourselves, not with Lord Shri Krishna. Because He is Achyuta, He is infallible. And He is so merciful that even when we have turned Bahirmukha, we have turned our back towards Him, and we want to enjoy in this material world, so when we have this materialistic perception that this material world is for me, all the sense objects are for me to enjoy, at that time also He does not leave us. And there is this message, I really liked it, that follow Krishna because He will never unfollow you. So this is the true essence, because Lord is such an affectionate Father, He wants to be there. Just like the 2 birds in the tree, one bird is going from branch to branch, which is like going to higher branches is going to heavenly planets, coming to lower branches going to the earthly planets and lower planets, and tasting various kind of fruits. These fruits are fruits of happiness and distress, and the nourishment of this tree is coming from the 3 modes of material nature. And this bird which is enjoying is the living entity, while the other bird is just waiting for this other bird, the first bird that's enjoying the fruits of happiness and distress, to turn around so that can listen. So the second bird is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, waiting for the living entity to turn around and take to the instruction and be able to destroy all miseries with the fire of devotional service. So Lord Krishna extensively explains this to Uddhava. And then Lord Krishna identifies that various philosophies emerge, but they are not the true sense. In reality, one has to take to devotional service. The 9 process of devotional service we discuss: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam. Shravanam, hearing; Kirtanam is chanting, right? Reciting Vedas and bona fide scriptures. Smaranam is remembering Lord Shri Krishna, Lord Vishnu, Vishnu Smaranam. Pada Sevanam, by serving the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, just like Lakshmi Devi does. And Kirtanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam. So again, Archanam is deity worship, Vandanam is singing prayers, Dasyam is being a servant of the Lordship, Sakyam being friendly to the Lordship and his devotees and his associates, and Atmanivada, surrendering everything to the Lord for his pleasure. So these are the 9 processes of devotional service that we should engage. And further, Shukdev Goswami, understanding this Kali age, he also adds reading and writing. As we have seen, the Acharyas have also been that's also part of devotional service. So various kind of philosophies emerged. And now Lord Krishna starts deciding that but one who is engaged in devotional service is the Supreme, and such a person, one has to seek the happiness by having no desires. So it's not becoming desireless, rather having all the desires to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rishikesha. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. Anasaktasya Vishayam Yatharam Upayunjanta Nirbandha Krishna Sambandha Yukta Vairagyam Uchate. So that is renouncing properly. What is proper Vairagya? Yukta Vairagya is to use everything that we have received, understanding its connections with Lord Shri Krishna, and thus engaging it in pleasing Lord Shri Krishna. And that's the quality of a Hamsa, right? And there are so many scriptures that allow us to elevate to that level, to be able to understand how everything is related with Lord Shri Krishna, and understanding that relationship, we should engage everything in service of Lord Shri Krishna. And charity begins at home. So not just that we be very nice with the outsiders, but also at home we should be lovingly exchanging, interacting with our family members and enabling them, understanding that Jivera Suruphoya Krishna Nityadas. So not just us, but they are also living entities, eternal servant, and engaging them in such a manner that they feel encouraged to chant the glories of Lord Shri Krishna and engage in the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Now Lord Shri Krishna, as he is describing to Uddhava the qualities as how one can be happy, he starts describing the quality of a devotee, a bona fide devotee, one who follows the disciplic succession, a bona fide disciplic succession. And such a devotee, he says, is invincible by the 3 modes of material nature. So even if there is a momentary fall down of such a devotee, Lord Krishna, just like blazing fire destroys everything, turns everything to ashes, he destroys all those reactions of the impious activities that the devotee may have performed accidentally to ashes. So Lord is constantly protecting. And in Bhagavad Gita, Lord does declare, he asks Arjuna to declare, not himself, but he says, Kanteya prati janehi name bhakta prayashati. Oh, my dear Arjuna, declare it boldly that my devotee shall not perish, because Lord is behind his devotee. And he is saying that such a devotee is equipoised, he is calm. Matra sparshaastu kanteya shitoshna sukha dukkha agama paina anityastam titikshasva bharata. So just like in the seasons, summer season and winter season, they come and go, agama apayino, and they are anityas, they are temporary in nature. Similarly, happiness and distress, they come and go in this material world. And such a person is equipoised because he is tam titikshasvas, he is tolerant, he understands, he tolerates the changing season. Just like that, he tolerates the happiness and distress and is equipoised, he is equanimous. And he is satisfied in me, he is saying. So such a person is constantly meditating on Lord Shri Krishna and accepting everything as Lord Krishna desires. and yet engaging with full determination, with great zeal, and yet be patient in carrying out the 9 processes of devotional service, giving up the association of non-devotees, people who gossip, do not like to discuss about Lord Shri Krishna, but associating only with the devotees, right, who like to always glorify Lord Shri Krishna and following in the footsteps of acharyas, the spiritual masters. So these are the 6 principles of spiritual advancement. Utsaha nishchaya dharya tat karma pravartana sangatyaga sato vritte sadvir bhakti prasiddhati. Srila Rupa Goswami in Uddeshamitra is revealing these 6 principles of spiritual advancement. Utsahan, with great zeal, with great enthusiasm. Nishchayat, with great determination. Dharyat, with patience. Tat karma pravartanat, engaging in the 9 processes, the various processes of devotional service. Sangatyaga, so this is also Sangatyaga, giving up the association of non-devotees. Satovritte, following in the footsteps of previous acharyas. So again, that is Anusharan, taking shelter of their instructions, going deeper in the instructions of Lord Shri Krishna and understanding that what is of our benefit, how we should be behaving and how we should be acting, and associating even with non-devotees, even with general populace. So we should be looking from that perspective. And he is continuing to identify the transcendental happiness that such a devotee feels cannot be experienced by anyone who can even be performing great sacrifices, even recitation of Vedic scriptures, who is engaged in Ashtanga Yoga and has attained various siddhis, who has attained various kind of opulences in this world, cannot experience the happiness that a devotee experiences, being satisfied in me. How can one be happy if they are not peaceful? So first one has to be peaceful. And then, Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samha sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. So one who is at the level of Brahman, Brahma bhuta, he is prasannatma. He is constantly rejoicing in transcendental bliss. Na shochati na kankshati, does not lament about the past, does not aspire for the future. Samha sarveshu bhuteshu, and is equally disposed towards all living entities. But bhakti labhate param, and of topmost of all of them is constantly engaged in my devotional service. So that is the state of a devotee. And a devotee, when he is desireless, Lord Krishna reveals in this chapter that he is not looking for to attain the abode of Lord Brahma. He is not looking to get the abode of Indra. He is not looking for an earthly kingdom. He is not looking to get sovereignty on the lower planets. He is not looking for name, fame and glories. He is constantly engaged in my service, and that gives him this transcendental ecstatic experience, that happiness that he observes and experiences that cannot be experienced by a non-devotee, even though that non-devotee can be engaged in so many activities. Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and even as a karmi trying to build great wealth all around. With all those opulences, such a person cannot experience. But a devotee experiences. And then Lord reveals to Uddhava, which is where it clearly distinguishes as how Lord is thinking of Uddhava, how pure devotee Uddhava is. He is glorifying Uddhava. That Uddhava, I don't, you are more dear to me than Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the goddess of fortune, or even myself. So Uddhava is more dear to Lord Shri Krishna than Lord Brahma, the first living entity, Lord Shiva, the topmost Vaishnava, goddess of fortune, one who is his consort, constantly serving him all the time. So he is glorifying Uddhava at that level. So he is clearly identifying that a devotee of Lord Shri Krishna is very dear, and he is seeking to purify all the worlds by the lotus feet, the dust from the lotus feet of his devotees. And this is, very enlivening, because he is showing by his examples. We talked about this story. Srila Prabhupada used to cover the story of, Prime Minister of England, Gladstone,
once a delegate came to meet him. And the secretary asked him to wait outside because he was busy, she said. And the delegate, after some time, could not control himself. He just opened the office doors because he wanted to meet. He had been waiting for over an hour. And what does he see? He sees Gladstone on his knees and on his arms on the floor. And a small boy is riding the Prime Minister Gladstone on his back. And this delegate was surprised to see. So the Prime Minister Gladstone, Prime Minister of England, he was acting like a horse for his grandson. So that is loving exchange. That's not material dealing. So that loving exchange between the Lord and his devotees are so transcendental and so sweet that Lord, he takes a lower position. So this is a mundane example that identifies that the dealing, in the office is very much different than the dealing at home. As parents, sometimes we take a lower position just to please, to reciprocate the loving exchange with our loved ones. So Lord, He is the Supreme Father. Why would He not do that? Why should we look at Him from material eyes? Why can't we look at Him from spiritual eyes, salve with that love of Godhead? Premanja chuchurita bhakti virochinena santah sadev hridayeshu vilokayanti. So again, He resides in the heart of all the devotees whose eyes are imbued with this love of salve, salve of love actually. So they are constantly, means devotees are always understanding how Lord Shri Krishna is so lovingly having this beautiful exchange with His, sweet exchange with His devotees, and Janmashtami is coming. We should make the best use of our time by engaging in devotional service. And here, as Lord is revealing that you are even more dear to me, Uddhav. And He is saying that without love and devotion, all of the processes are useless. So all of the processes, all of the systems, the philosophies, they actually rely on to come to the level of devotional service, bhakti yoga. And then one can achieve perfection. There is no other process. And in this Kali age, right? Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nam eva kevalam, kalor nashteva, 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 gatiranyatha. In Brihad Naradiya Purana it is revealed, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he propagated this message, that Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nam eva kevalam. So chanting of the holy name, chanting of the holy name, chanting of the holy name is repeated 3 times for stress. Sometimes we do that 2 times for the stress. So you can imagine 3 times is like further beyond that. Is the only process which can destroy the effect of this Kali age, the effects of this Kali age. And that's also repeated. Nashdev, 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 Gatiranyatha. There is no other process. So Lord is revealing. Otherwise, if we don't take to devotional service, it's like a blind leading a blind. And people are getting bewildered from that perspective. Now, Lord is further revealing the ecstatic symptoms that appear in the body of a devotee. He is saying that if one's hair do not stand on end, how can the heart melt? So people who are very hard-hearted, how can their heart melt if the hair do not stand on the end when they are hearing the name, form, activities, pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna? And if the heart does not melt, how can the tears of love flow from the eyes? How can that happen? So he's revealing. And if one does not cry in his spiritual ecstasy at happiness that one is feeling, how can one render loving service to me? So Lord Krishna is saying to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how can we serve Him with love and devotion if we are not able to cry out? And this is a cry of happiness, right? Tears of happiness, tears in ecstasy. And without such service, how can the consciousness of a living entity be purified? So to be able to purify our consciousness, we have to engage in devotional service. When we engage in devotional service, we learn to appreciate how great God is, right? We all know God is great. That is the what aspect. But how great He is, that He accepts the position of a charioteer for Arjun, Parth, Sarthi. He accepts to take padukas of Nand Baba on his head when Mother Yashoda asked him as his young boy form to bring the slippers of paduka of Nand Maharaj. He accepts to be defeated by Śrī Uddhava because of his loving exchange with the cowherd boys. He accepts defeat at so many places just to have this loving exchange. And a devotee, he's saying sometimes his speech chokes up, his voice chokes up, and whose heart melts. So again, we also hear this in the pure, this ecstatic symptoms appeared in the body of Vidura when he met with Uddhava, and Uddhava revealed that Lord Kṛṣṇa has left for his abode. So that happened, in the previous cantos, but happened after this pastime, after Kṛṣṇa had imparted all the instructions to Uddhava, and he had left. At that time when Uddhava was carrying the message, he actually visited Vrindavan before going to Badrikashram. So when he was returning, at that time he happened to see Vidurji, and when he saw Mahatma Vidur and he shared that Lord Kṛṣṇa has returned to his supreme abode, he saw those ecstatic symptoms manifest in Vidur's body, where the voice, the speech chokes up, and the hair stands on his hand, the heart is melted, and one is crying out loudly. And also in the case of a devotee whose heart is melting and who's continually crying, sometimes loses external consciousness, the consciousness of this body. And sometimes he's laughing, sometimes he's crying, sometimes he's feeling ashamed, and sometimes he's very loud in his behavior. And sometimes he's dancing in ecstasy. So such a devotee is constantly engaged in loving service to Lord Shri Krishna. So we should also understand that Lord Krishna is saying that he is always seeking to glorify his devotee who is constantly glorifying him. Just like Srila Prabhupada went about glorifying Lord Shri Krishna, so he went taking so much strenuous journey on this Jalduta ship. And Her Grace Malti Mataji, she describes that when she was in Bombay, during her trip to India, in the early days in ISKCON, she went to see which the Jalduta ship is there. She went to the Bombay at the dock, and she was seeing these big gigantic ships one after another. And she was thinking, which one is Jalduta? She was looking up, and then she asked the person, which one is Jalduta? She's looking for the ship. So the person said, don't look up, look down. And she looked down, there was a small ship, small cargo ship. And she was wondering, how did Srila Prabhupada travel in this ship, this small ship, this cargo ship? And now she was able to relate to how difficult that journey must have been. That Srila Prabhupada had to face 2 heart attacks. He was seasick, and the captain was, he went anytime he got the chance, he went and got things for Srila Prabhupada so he could somehow sustain. But when they entered the Atlantic Ocean, at that time the water of Atlantic were completely calm. Atlantic is never calm. And at that time, the captain revealed to Srila Prabhupada that he has never seen the waters of Atlantic Ocean to be so calm. And Lord Krishna, Srila Prabhupada revealed to him that Lord Krishna has taken over at that time, because he dreamt of Lord Krishna, that Lord Krishna is rowing the boat. So he's again, he had taken over, and Srila Prabhupada was constantly meditating on Lord Shri Krishna. So when a devotee, as we hear in the case of Srila Prabhupada, a pure devotee of Lord Shri Krishna, is trying to glorify Lord Shri Krishna, and Lord Krishna glorifies his devotee. And that's what we see in Bhagavatam again and again, that the devotees are glorifying Lord Shri Krishna so that other devotees become happy, and when his devotees, Lord Krishna's devotees, are glorified, then Lord becomes happy. So Lord glorifies Srila Prabhupada by expanding Krishna consciousness all around the world, by having these transcendental scriptures from Srila Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, so that we can experience the ecstasy and purify our very existence by performing the austerity of mind, body and speech, and transcending the 3 modes of material nature by engaging in devotional service, which simply starts with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And now Uddhava has this inquiry as how one should meditate. on you. So you are talking about, he's revealing to Lord Krishna that you are telling that one's mind should be constantly meditating on me. So please, Lord, explain to me what is the proper process. How should one meditate on you? And so that is the yogic process. And then Lord Krishna reveals that one should sit on a asana which is not too high and not too low. So one should be comfortably sitting erect in their posture, meditating with our eyes half closed, focusing on the tip of the nose. So this is a Ashtanga Yoga process, right? To get up to the level of Samadhi. And to be able to go through it, of course, the various processes is also identifying that one has to focus in meditation with Purak. Purak means inhalation. Kumbhak is holding the breath after you have inhaled it. And Rechaka is exhalation. So by constant deep breathing, right? So we have Kapalbhati, Bhastrika, Anulom Vilom, the various processes that we see. And these are, what are these called? Pranayam. Yes, the processes in pranayam. The various exercises, breathing exercises, pranayam, to reestablish the prana, right? To be able to control and reestablish the various kind of 5 airs in our body. And by following that further, he's saying that when this process, this is repeated in reverse with Rechaka exhalation, then again holding Kumbhak, and then Purak is again inhalation. So the process continues. And by following pranayam exercises 10 times during morning, afternoon and evening, 3 times a day, in a month one can perfectly control one's senses. Yet the process, this particular process is very difficult for the current age. We should still perform pranayam so that we keep a healthy body. We have received this gift from Lord Shri Krishna, so it is our responsibility to make sure every gift should be properly taken care of and properly used in serving Lord Shri Krishna very nicely. So everything has relationship with Lord Shri Krishna. It's an expansion, not for our sense gratification, but for His pleasure. We should engage ourselves. And when Lord Krishna explains this again, in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, this is identified very clearly that who's the topmost yogi of all the yogis. Yoginam pipi sarvesham madgatena antara atmana shaddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamomatha. Of all the yogis, api sarvesham madgatena antara atmana. One who abides in me, I also abide in him, Lord Krishna is revealing. Shaddhavan bhajate yomam. And with love and devotion. So these are the two very essential. Shaddhavan. With faith, Shaddhavan. So they are imbued with this strong faith towards Lord Shri Krishna. Bhajate yomam. Who engages in serving me. So again, bhaj is more wider than worship. Worship is archanam. Bhaj is actually the whole devotional services, various processes. Samayukta tamamata. So again, he is the topmost devotee in my opinion. So Lord Krishna reveals that how one becomes mad bhava bhavitam. So how, just like Srila Prabhupada gives this example, when you put an iron rod in touch with fire, it becomes red hot. So it becomes like fire. So the living entity engaged in the devotional service of Lord Shri Krishna purifies and becomes pure. Various other processes are revealed, just like gold gives up all its impurities when heated in fire. So in fire, all those impurities, they are separated from gold. And similarly, if one's eye is infected, by proper medication, in the eye drops and so forth, one is able to remove that infection, is able to see, to have the sight. So similarly, by taking to devotional service, one can purify one's consciousness by performing the austerities of mind, body and speech. By engaging in devotional service, one can transcend the 3 modes of material nature and attain the supreme perfection. So just by simply hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, it is revealed. Then one should ignite the blazing fire of loving service to the Supreme Lord by engaging in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. And so one will be able to burn up to ashes the network of material illusion by the mercy of the Lord. And this simply starts with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So again in this chapter, we covered as Uddhava wants to know of the various philosophies that have appeared, and various sages have recommended various processes and various rituals and various goal of life, which one is the supreme? Lord Krishna reveals that the devotional service is supreme. One should follow the bona fide, disciplic successions to be able to attain perfection by following the process of devotional service, and how they came into being, how the Vedas, the flowery language of Vedas, attracted different kind of living entities being influenced by the different modes of material natures, and in that way how this variety caused so much unhappiness, while one who is a devotee is transcendently happy. He's experienced the happiness that other people of other philosophies and processes do not experience, and how such a devotee is being followed by Lord and further purified in the association of Lord, and Lord takes a lower position because of that loving exchange. It's not a material dealing, and such a Lord, which again Uddhava, is more dear to Lord than he himself. So Lord is revealing that a pure devotee of the Lord is more dear to him than he himself, and such a devotee, he is always seeking to glorify such a devotee. And we saw in the example of Srila Prabhupada as how he is glorified, because he always wanted to glorify, he seeks to glorify Lord Shri Krishna and look for the benefit of others. So we should be also non-violent in our very nature, in our austerities, and seeking to engage our self, our purification, as well as purification of all the ones that we engage with. And that is by being clean, by being pure, by being simple in our dealings, and by not be agitating. And so we can attain perfection in this very life and take to devotional service by chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, thanks for joining us today. And please take to the devotional service to be happy and take the maximum benefit of the coming occasion of Janmashtami. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Hari Bol. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. So Lord Krishna talks about the Paramatma feature, which is this picture being depicted in the form. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.